Sham Sharadava Nalalidaloka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalidaloka Praptasya Kalyana Guranavasya Bande Gurashi Charanaravindam Praptasya Kalyana Guranavasya Bande Gurashi Charanaravindam Bande Gurashi Charanaravindam Bande Gurashi Charanaravindam Charanaravindam Bande Gurashi Charanaravindam Mahaprabhu ki Tananita Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasuraseno Mahaprabhu ki Romanchakam pasru tarangavaju Bande Gurashi Charanaravindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramarjanado Yuktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatopi Bande Gurashi Charanaravindam Chaturvidhashi Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidhashi Kridvaiva Tripti Bhajata Shadiva Bande Gurashi Charanaravindam Shirarikama Davayorapara Madhurya Lila Gunarupanamna Pratikshana Swa Dhanalolupasya Bande Gurashi Charanaravindam Ne kunjayuno rati kirisi dhyai Jayali ver joktir apekshaneya Jono rati kirisi dhyai Jayali ver Tatrati daksha ativalavasya Bande Gurashi Charanaravindam सच्चाधरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे रुक्तस्तथाव व्यत एव साधुभिः किन्तु प्रवर्ज प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरोषि चरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसाद नगति कुतपि यस्य प्रसाद यस्य प्रसाद दयां स्तुवं तस्य यशत्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरोषि चरणरविन्दम् दयां स्तुवं तस्य यशत्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरोषि चरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरोषि चरणरविन्दम् नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदान्त नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे देवे गौरवाणी निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशता जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य नित्यानंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरा भक्तवृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य नित्यानंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य नित्यानंद Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Haraye Namah, Krishna Jadavaye Namah, Jadavaye Madhavaye Keshavaya Namah, Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan, Giridhari Gopina Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda, Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattara Guna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasara Guna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Shishi Radha, Nila Madhava Radha, Nila Madhava Radhe. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Sitaram. Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Pramanande Hari. Oh, Jai Vishwapara Pramsa, Paribran Jakacharya Suttara Shri Srimad Divine Grace. Abhakran Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Iskon Pratishtha Bhakti Samstha Charvashrama Siromani Padita Pavana Shila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gaurya Guru Varga Patiti Udhar ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatra Gunatha Shri Gopala Bhatta Das Sadguru Swami Prabhu ki jai. Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur ji ki jai. Jayananta Koti Vishnavendi ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री गौर भक्त बिंद की जय। जय परम दयाल से नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद स्मरण गुरु चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावरण अवतार की जय। गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरिनाम संकीर्तन जय की जय। जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। बृहद मृदंग ट्रांसजेंडर बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय। राधा कृष्ण को राधा कुंड गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रजपिम वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय। The Lordship Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava की जय। मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्र धाम की जय। परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान की जय। भक्ति सर्वविघ्न विनाशन कर सिंगरे भगवान की जय। गंगा माय जमुना माय की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री मथुरा धारानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौरी प्रमानंदे हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled bodies, all glories to the assembled bodies, all glories to the assembled bodies, all glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. Namaste Narashi Gaya. Namaste Narashi Gaya. Pralada la da da hoine. Pralada la da da hoine. Hiranyaka Sipurvaksha. Hiranyaka Sipurvaksha. Silatang kanaka laye. Jaya silatang kanaka laye. Ito nisingo parato nisingo. Jato jato jamita to nisingo. Bahir nisingo, hrudaye nisingo. Narasingha madhimi sharanam prapade. Tava kara kamala bare nakam Advaita Singha Dalita Hiranyakasipo Tanabringa Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Tavakara Kamala Vare Nakam Advaita Singha Dalita Hiranyakasipo Tanabringa Kesavadita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Kesavadruta Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jai Jagadisha Re Jayo Nisingade, Jayo Nisingade, Nisingade, Jayo Nisingade. Jayo Narahari, Jayo Narahari, Narahari, Jayo Narahari. Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo. Jayo Bhakta Prahlad, Prahlad Maharaj, Bhakta Prahlad, Jayo Prahlad Maharaj. Nittai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nittai Gaura Haribo. जय श्री श्री भक्ति पता सर्वविघ्नाशना कनिसिंह भगवान की जय, भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। निताय गौरारी प्रेमानंद हरि हरि बोल। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी भाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रहरी देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी भाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रहरी देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी भाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रहरी देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदादेवी की जय।
Namo Namah Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namah Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilasi Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilasi Je tomar sharana loy Tara vancha purna hoy Kripa kori koro tare Vrindavanavasi Moya eya vilas, vilas kunjeri avas. Nayane Haribo Sada Jugala Ruparasi. Hey Nivedana Daro Sakir Anugata Koro. Sevadi Karadie Koro Nijadasi. Zina Krishna Dase Koi Eye Namora Hoi. Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayana Basi. Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayana Basi. Namo Nama Tulasi Krishna Preyasi. Namo Nama Tulasi Krishna Preyasi. Namo Nama Yani Kani Chapapani Brahma Tyati Kani. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani. Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Nitai Gaur Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribol.
That you also give me a residence in Pleasure Road to share now and now. That's within my vision. I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavidyams and Suvraj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. Is very full in the Lord is servant Krishna days. May I always sing aloud Shri Radha, go, Shmali Tulsi Maharani, Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Kam Ki Jai. Jaito Madhavaniva Shri Akarva Chandika Vitarana Anandam Vardhanam Triparam Purnamrita Shradanam Sarvatmasnam Param Paravijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Shmarana Nakala Etadrushi Tava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Vidishamya Nanuraga Trinarapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amani Namanadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Na Dhanam Na Janam Na Sundari Kavitam Vajagadishakamahi Mama Janmane Janmaneshwari Bhavata Bhakti Rahituki Tvai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Paritama Viswame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tapapar Pankaja Stitaduli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galora Shrudharaya Varanam Gadagadharudaya Gira Pulakai Nichitam Vapukada Tavanam Agrahane Bhavisati Juga Itam Nimishena Chakrusha Prarusa Itam Shunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virahe Name Aslishva Padratam Pinashtumam Adarshnan Marmahatam Karotuva Jatadatava Vidadatulam Pato Matpranatastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikyastakam Ki Jai. Namo Mahavaranaye Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauri Tushiram. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes the fire of condition of life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names you have invested your transcendental energies. They are not hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, think of oneself Lord on stony street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Oh, Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, Amarada, I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? Will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he should remain so, even if he sandals me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord and condition. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikyastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme with devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the names of demigods, like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahman, to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often Vedas as fruitive activity, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the fearless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting of the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against his 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prem. Now let us offer our most humble obeisance to all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone.
And they're full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpa tarabhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutali Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanaka. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Vicharani Nirvisesa Sungvani Paskati. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Om Aganyati Mirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapritam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Pachakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vishaka Divitam Sat Mama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Namas Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamine Shivasvanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhakti Da Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namastute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishoraya Shakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralamba Rasambode Padambu Jayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gauravir Baba Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhoma Sri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Panchakalpa Tarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guruchase Namaha Panchatatvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratur Pangur Mamamanda Bhatir Gati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vindaranya Kalpadrumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastato Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prestali Vihi Sevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasaram Vivam Sivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswaner Gobir Gobinatak Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai, Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakala Sadma Sakalpa Vriksha Lakshavriti Surabir Abhipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrama Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kvanantam Aravinda Dalaya Taksham Parhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Darpadokin Jesasobam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kala Sadvana Malyavamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalita Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Kani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabha Madurlabha Matma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsada Sampragamyo Vayoratapi manaso munipungamanam sopyasti yat prapadasimya vichintya tattve govindam adipurisham tamaham bhajami ekopya sora chaitum jagadanda kotim yaschaktirasti jagadanda chayayadanta andantarasta paramanu jayantarastam govindam adipurisham Tamaham bhajami yad bhava bhavita diyo manajasta taiva sampraptya rupa mahima sanayana bhusa suktaryameva nigama pratitaistuvanti govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami ananda chinmaya rasat patibhavitabhis tabirya eva nijarupa tayakalabi Goloka eva nivasat akilatma bhuto govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santaksadeva hidayesu vilokayanti yam sham sundaram achintya gunaswarupam govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami ramadi murti sukalani amenatistan nanavataram akarod bhuvanesu kintu Krishna swayam samabhavat paramam pumam yo govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Yasya prabha prabhavato jagadanda koti koti svasesu vasudadi vibhuti binam tad brahma niskalam anantam asesa bhutam govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami ananda chinmaya rasat matayamanas vayahi yasya jagadanda satani sute traigunya tad vishaya veda vitayamanam sattva valambi parasatvam visuddha sattvam Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami ananda chinmaya rasat mataya manasu ya praninam patifalam smaratam upetya lilayatena bhuvanani jaya yajasram Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami goloka namni nijadamni talecha tasya devi mahesu haridama sute 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 te prabhavan vichaya vihitascha yena Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Shastistati pralayasada vasaktireka chayeva yasya bhuvanani vivarti durga ichanurupam apiyasya chachestate sa govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami shiram yata dadi vikara visesa yoga sanjayate nahitata pritakasti ahitu yasambutam apitata samapaitikar govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami dipachad eva hitasantaram Abhyupetya Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samanudarna Yastadrag Eva Vishubhaya Bhati Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Mananta Jagananda Asroma Kupa Adhara Saktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami yasyaika nisvasita kala matavalambya jivanti loma vilaja jagadandanata vishnur mahansahi yasya kala viseso Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami basman yatasma sakalesu nijesu teja sriyam kiyat prakatayat apitadvadatra brahmaya esa jagadanda vidanukarta Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Yat pada palava yugam vinidaya kumbha Dvande pranama samaye saganadi raja Vignan vihanta malamasya jagatrayasya Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Agnir mahiga ganamam bhumarudisascha Kalastatatma manasiti jagatrayani Yasmad bhavanti vibhavanti visanti yamcha Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami yaschaksuresa savitasa kalagrahanam raja samasta suramurti rasesa teja yasyagaya brahmati sambrita kala chakro Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami dharmota papa nichaya srutayastapamsi brahmadi kitta patagavritayascha jivaha yadata matra vibhava prakata prabhava Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami yastrindra gopa matavendra mahosva karma bandhan rupa phalabhajana matan pratanoti karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam govindam adi purisham tamaham bhajami yam krodha kama sahaja pranayadi bhitte vatsalya moha guragora vasevya bhavai sanchintya tasya sadrisim tanamapurete Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Vajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Durma Bhumish Chintamani Ganamayi Toyam Amritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apimam Sipriya Saki Chidanandam Jyoti Param Apitad Aswadyam Apicha Sayatra Siradi Bihishavati Sirabhi Vyascha Sumahan Nime Sardakyova Rajati Nahiyatra Pisamaya Bhaje Sweta Dvipam Tamaham Iha Golakam Itiyam Vedantas Te Santakshiti Virala Charakati Paye Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Shrimad Bhagavatam Grantaraja Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, Text 21. Yadat mani nira lokam atmanam cha dridikshata nirbine hyakshini tasya jyotish chaksur gunagraha yada while Atmani, unto himself, Niralukam, without any light, Atmanam, his own transcendental body, Cha, also other bodily forms, Didrikshata, desire to look upon, Nirbine, due to being sprouted, He, for, Akshini, of the eyes, Tasya, of him, Jyoti, the sun, Chaksu, the eyes, Gunagraha, the power of seeing. Thus, when everything existed in darkness, the Lord desired to see himself and all that was created. Then the eyes, the illuminating God's sun, the power of vision, and the object of sight, all became manifested. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The universe is by nature dense darkness, and therefore the total creation is called tamas, or darkness. The night is the real feature of the universe, for then one cannot see anything, including oneself. The Lord, out of his causeless mercy, first desired to see himself and all the creation as well, and thus the sun became manifested. The power of vision for all living entities became possible, and the objects of vision were also manifested. This means that the whole phenomenal world became visible after the creation of the sun. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thus, when everything existed in darkness, the Lord desired to see himself and all that was created. Then the eyes, the illuminating God sun, the power of vision, and the object of sight all became manifested. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So I wanted to go over a little bit yesterday's purport, and then we'll discuss this today. But there's a very interesting, very, very interesting subject that is going to be brought up today, in today's verse, and that is the sun. According to the Vedic astrology or astronomy, the sun is the only real sun in the universe. All the other planets are simply, including the Earth, reflecting the sun or the moon. Okay, that's fine. Now, next question. How come space is always dark? And why is it that when there's daytime, we can see the sun. And how come if you travel to in space, it's dark? How come there's light on the Earth, and light is being reflected from all the stars? But how come space itself is so dark? Have you ever thought about this? When you leave the Earth's atmosphere, all of a sudden everything becomes dark. Not pitch dark, but almost. How come space is there's no absolute light in space? There are electromagnetic waves from the sun, but it's relatively dark. So that's something you should think about. Even the scientists, up until today, have not been able to really figure it out. You'd think, well, the sun is shining, so everything should be light in space. But it's not. Then how come it becomes light when the Earth is facing the sun? So there's questions that can be thought about. Well, yesterday it says, thereafter when the Supreme Purusha desired to smell odors, the nostrils and respiration were generated. The nasal instrument and odors came into existence. And the controlling deity of air, carrying smell, also became manifested. Okay, so there are some very important points in this purport. And it says, the nasal instrument, odor, and the controlling deity, air, smelling, etc., all became manifested simultaneously when the Lord desired to smell. The Vedic mantras confirm this statement in the Upanishads statement that everything is first desired by the Supreme before the subordinate living entity can act upon it. The living entity can see only when the Lord sees. The living entity can smell when the Lord smells, and so on. The idea is that the living entity cannot do anything independently. He can simply think of doing something independently, but he cannot act independently. This independence in thinking is there by the grace of the Lord, but the thinking can be given shape, meaning you can only act by the grace of the Lord. You can think freely, but you can't act without the help of the Lord. And therefore the common saying is that man proposes and God disposes. The whole explanation is on the subject of the absolute dependence of the living entities and the absolute independence of the Supreme Lord. So this is the main point, is that the Lord is absolutely independent. It doesn't depend on anyone or anything. He can do whatever he wants by his own will. He doesn't need anyone else's help or support. And the living entity is absolutely dependent. The living entity cannot do anything on its own except it can desire whatever it wants. But it can't satisfy that desire without the help of the Lord, whether the desire is sinful or the desire is spiritual. So this is the real situation that we're in. But there are so many false philosophies, especially the modern atheistic existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre, and there's a whole bunch of them, but he was one of the main guys, and he's saying that mankind is cursed to be independent. In other words, he's saying the complete opposite of what was just said here. And I hope you don't go and read his philosophy, because you'll just get confused by it. But everything is opposite what Krishna consciousness says. So that's why Prabhupada says the whole explanation is on the subject of the absolute dependence of the living entities and absolute independence of the Supreme Lord. So, we can desire anything we want. But see, that is dangerous. Why is it dangerous? Anybody want to say? Why is it dangerous that we can desire anything we want? Because with that type of freedom, you can desire the wrong thing all the time, which is what is happening today. And it's happening to us. It's happening to our kids. And we have no control over it. Why? Because we don't realize, we're not hearing this Srimad Bhagavatam philosophy correctly and very with a lot of attention. We don't want to desire the wrong thing, but we're being forced to do it by association with the demons. Now, there's two types of people in the universe. There are devotees and there are demons. And the demons far outnumber the devotees. So it's not surprising that even though one may be a devotee, they become influenced by the demons. It's not surprising because there are overwhelming numbers of them. And everywhere you turn, there are demons. However, one person, like Srila Prabhupada, can turn thousands and millions of demons into devotees. One person. Say, just imagine if there were an army of pure devotees. Then the numbers would be more equal. But Prabhupada said all you need to do is convince 1% of the world's population to become devotees, the rest will become devotees. 1% only. That's how powerful devotee preachers can be. Like, for example, the Muslim preachers are pretty powerful. They can convince a young man to strap bombs on their body and blow themselves up and kill other people. You got to be a really good preacher to do that. You think any of you could convince somebody to put a bomb on their body and blow themselves up? No. They are really powerful preachers. See? Of course, what they're preaching is nonsense, but you have to give it to them. They're able to do it. They're determined. So we have to be determined also to develop our abilities to be able to convince people to do the right thing. That's all. I mean, if we can't even convince our own kids, how are you going to convince anybody else? See, that's the whole point. If you can't convince your own kids, how are you going to convince anyone else? That's why there's a saying that the faraway saint is always better. The immediate saint does not take in usually as credible. So, therefore, we have to have a very, very strict control over the education of our kids. Because if we don't, we're outnumbered. And the kids are overwhelmed by the demons. That's what's happening. So, who is actually a candidate to become a devotee? You have to ask that question. Someone who has lost their faith in material life. That person is eligible, or let's say that person is already primed to become a devotee because they lost their faith in success in the material world. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. They don't see how that can be successful because they're frustrated by things that are happening. Now, a lot of people, and I'm telling you right now, a lot of people in America are going to get extremely frustrated in the next couple of months. Why? Because there's a major war going on in Europe now. It's in the same level as World War II. Of course, people say, "Oh, I don't even want to hear this." You know, well, you don't have to hear it; you're going to see it. And gasoline $6, $7, $8 a gallon. Prices shelves in the supermarkets empty, waiting in line to get gasoline because there's not enough gasoline. This happened under the peanut farmer president, Mr. What was his name? Anyway, when the peanut farmer became president, Carter, people were waiting in line for hours to get gas. That's how bad the supply chain became under a Democratic president named Carter. Well, we got another one now that's going to do the same thing. And things are going to get very hard. But that's actually good. Because when things get really difficult materially, people are willing to hear something about an alternate solution. And that's Krishna consciousness. So get ready for the roller coaster. But we will not be on a roller coaster if we're fixed up in Krishna consciousness. And if you're not fixed up, you'll be on the roller coaster with everybody else. One day, a little bit of happiness. Next day, complete misery. And that's not a life. So, here it says, the idea is that the living entity cannot do anything independently. He can simply think of doing something independently, but he cannot act independently. If we can just put this into our mind and keep it there, that'll be a great advancement in our knowledge of Krishna consciousness. If we can just put this one or two sentences in the mind, we can think independently, yes, but we can't do anything independently. It all depends on the Lord. We can't do anything good independently. We can't do anything bad independently. Either way, we have to have the help of the Lord, otherwise we cannot do it. This is a very important point to understand. Therefore, it says, the independence in thinking is there by the grace of the Lord, but the thinking can be given shape by the grace of the Lord. In other words, giving shape means it doesn't mean shaping your desire. It means that your ability to do that thing, either good or bad, is only due to the Lord. It's not. We don't have that independence of acting. This independence in thinking is there by the grace of the Lord, but the thinking can be given shape by the grace. But the thinking can be given shape. Given shape means you can put it into action by the grace of the Lord. And therefore the common saying is that man proposes and God disposes. Okay, now this is explained further in the 5th chapter, 15th verse. Yesterday someone asked me a question at that point. I think it was Sukirti Prabhu, and then we deviated. But it was good that we deviated yesterday. So in the 5th chapter, 15th verse, it says, in the purport, it says that desire is a subtle form of conditioning for the living entity. The Lord fulfills the living entity's desire as the living entity deserves, according to their previous karma. Man proposes and God disposes. In other words, we can desire anything we want, but then we can't act without Krishna's helping us. Right? So either he's going to help us to do the right thing, or he's going to help us to do the wrong thing. It all depends on our desire. The Lord, however, can fulfill all desires, whether they're good or bad, right? And the Lord, being neutral to everyone, does not interfere with the desires of the minute, independent living entities. That means everything depends on our desire. If we desire bad things, that's what's going to happen. If we desire good things, that's what's going to happen. The Lord will satisfy the desire. He remains neutral. He doesn't force you to desire only good things. We have to desire those on our own. And how do you develop desires? Through association. So if we're associating more with demons, then we're going to start desiring like the demons. If we associate more with devotees, then we will desire more like the devotees. It all depends on association. Association includes social media, television, radio, books, all those things, not only human relationships, but all those other avenues of receiving false information. However, when one desires Krishna, the Lord takes special care and encourages one to desire in such a way that one is, notice that it doesn't say forces one, it says encourages. Where do you get the encouragement from? Association with good devotees, and especially hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. That's where you get the association. If we want good association, we have to make an effort to get it. It doesn't come automatically. We have to make the effort, and that effort is becoming regulated in our habits, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, regulated according to the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. That's why at initiation, someone promises no meat, no gambling and speculation, no intoxication, no illicit sex. Chant 16 good rounds every day. Just like Prabhupada, he said, they claim they are chanting 16 rounds, but yet they don't cooperate. What does that mean? That means that they're not really chanting 16 rounds. That's what it means. They claim that they're chanting 16, but they don't cooperate. So there are many people like that. They claim they chant 16 rounds, but then they don't want to cooperate. Like, for example, I'm asking, at least Saturday and Sunday, everyone that's initiated must come to morning program. But you're not going to see them. They're not all going to come. And then at least on Saturday, a large number of people should go out on Sankirtan. That may happen. That may happen. The Mangala Aarti, it's not going to happen because people are not going to listen to it. You know? I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people are not going to listen. Why? Because they've developed a habit of sleeping in. And that's a very dangerous habit because you're not going to get the association that's inspiring to make spiritual advancement. So it says, however, when one desires Krishna, the Lord takes special care and encourages one to desire in such a way that one can attain to him, meaning Krishna, and be eternally happy. The Vedic hymns therefore declare, Esau hi eva sadhu karma karyati tam yam ebyo lokebya unin isate Esau eva sadhu karma karayati yam adho ninishate. The Lord engages the living entity in pious activities so that he may be elevated. The Lord engages him in impious activities so that he may go to hell. Whoa. It all depends on our desire. And where does that desire come from? Association. There it is. Very simple. It's not complicated. But yet it is complicated. Why? Because so many people can't do it. They can't consistently associate with devotees. They must associate with the demons because that is a tendency coming from a previous lifetime. The Lord engages the living entity in pious activities so that he may be elevated. The Lord engages him in impious activities so that he may go to hell. This is the Koshitaki Upanishad 3.8. Agyo gyantur aniso yam atmana sukha dukhayo ishvara prerito gachet swargam vas vabram evacha. The living entity is completely dependent in his distress and happiness. By the will of the Supreme, he can go to heaven or hell as a cloud is driven by the air. So now we have two verses, right, explaining the same point. The absolute dependence of the living entity on the Lord, although we have free will to desire anything we want, but if we desire bad things, Krishna will let us, Krishna remaining neutral, will let us do it. And he'll help us to do it. Right? Therefore, it's very important that we develop good desires. Every day we should have good desires to please the Lord, please Krishna, please spiritual master. It's very important that we desire in a good way. Therefore, the embodied soul, by his immemorial desire to avoid Krishna consciousness, that means life after life in all the 8,400,000 species that we have taken birth into, we have desired to avoid Krishna consciousness. It's not strange that we don't want to be Krishna conscious in this lifetime also. We've desired it in all those other lifetimes. Right? Therefore, the embodied soul, by his immemorial, that means that you can't even figure out how many lifetimes we have had. Immemorial means from even the beginning of time. Immemorial desire to avoid Krishna consciousness causes his own bewilderment. Consequently, although he is constitutionally eternal, blissful and cognizant, meaning full of knowledge, due to the littleness of his existence, he forgets his constitutional position of service to the Lord and is thus entrapped by nescience, by ignorance. And under the spell of ignorance, the living entity claims that the Lord is responsible for his conditional existence. There you go. It's all his fault. I'm only doing what he wants. It's him that's acting. That now I'm having illicit activities and smoking. It's him that's making me do this, not me. Yeah, sure. You see how crazy people are, right? The Vedanta Sutra 2.1.34 also confirms this. Vaishamya na grinye na sapeksatvat tata hi darsayati. The Lord neither hates nor likes anyone, though he appears to. So this is a very, very important purport. 5th chapter, 15th verse. You can't say, I didn't know. No, what do you mean you didn't know? We're hearing it now, day after day. You can't say I didn't know. All we can say is, I want Maya. Okay, then you're going to get it. But the idea is, by hearing this over and over again, we can finally come to the conclusion, I don't want Maya at all. I'm not going to have anything to do with Maya anymore because it's too dangerous. I can ruin my life and take birth again as an animal or an insect or something like that. The whole thing is too dangerous. I have to use every moment in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so man proposes, God disposes. Now we know what it means. We have independence of desire, that we can think anything we want. And if we're predominantly desiring nonsense things, Krishna remains neutral. He says, okay, I can't force you. You have independence of desire. So be it. Tadastu. Right? But don't blame it on me. It's the jiva's fault. It's not Krishna's fault. He's doing everything he can. He comes and speaks Bhagavad Gita. He brings people like the acharyas that write down all these instructions, and they give examples of it, and they broadcast it by preaching. He's doing everything he can to convince us, don't do this. Just become a devotee. Just surrender unto me and everything will be all right. In spite of all of that, still people will do the wrong thing. Still they're going to do the wrong thing. That's how ingrained this illusion and hatred of God is. Okay, so we have absolute dependence of the living entities and absolute independence of the Supreme Lord. Okay, so now we come to today's verse, and it says, in the purport, the universe is by nature dense darkness. Now, that's the point. How is that possible? The sun is shining all the time. How come the universe is dense darkness? And how come during daytime, like right now, we see light? And at night, when apparently this side of the Earth is not facing the sun, it's dark, right? But how come space is dark? Because and especially the astronomers and scientists say that every star is a sun. If every star is a sun, how come space is dark? You see, this is and let me read something to you. You'll see this is a very confusing issue, even for the scientists. Let's see here. Yeah. Is a question. Why is space black? Answer. Your question, which seems simple, is actually very difficult to answer. It is a question that many scientists pondered for many centuries, including Johannes Kepler, Edmund Halley, and German physician, astronomer Wilhelm Olbers. There are two things to think about here. Let's take the easy one first and ask, why is daytime sky blue here on Earth? That is a question we can answer. There's no guarantee their answer is true, but anyway, let's see what they say. The daytime sky is blue because light from the nearby sun hits molecules in the Earth's atmosphere and scatters off in all directions. The blue color of the sky is a result of the scattering process. At night, when the part of Earth is facing away, when that part of Earth is facing away from the sun, space looks black because there is no nearby bright source of light, like the sun, to be scattered. If you were on the moon, which has no atmosphere, the sky would be black both night and day. You can see this in photographs taken during the Apollo moon landings. Okay, so obviously the way they're explaining this is that the atmosphere of the Earth has some effect on whether there's going to be light or color, etc. Is that a correct explanation? There's no guarantee that that's a correct explanation, but it is an explanation, right? Now, let's get to the hard part. So now on to the harder part. If the universe is full of stars, why doesn't the light from all of them add up to make the whole sky bright all the time? Very good question, right? By the way, raise your hand if you knew this before today. Anybody? What?
We knew that there are a lot of stars, but this question of if there are so many stars, why is it still dark? And scientists say, oh, there is a dark matter. So 3/4 of the universe is dark matter. They will use that.
Yeah, it's a confusing question, right? If they're all stars, how come the universe is dark, right? Well, they're not all stars. There's only one star. That's the sun. Now, this just makes that statement of the Vedas stronger. You understand? Even they're perplexed by it, right? Because they say all the stars, all the suns are, all the stars are suns. So now on to the harder part. If the universe is full of stars, why doesn't the light from all of them add up to make the whole sky bright all the time? It turns out that if the universe was infinitely large and infinitely old, then we would expect the night sky to be bright from the light of all those stars. Every direction you looked in space, you would be looking at a star. Yet we know from experience that space is black. This paradox is known as Olbers' paradox. It is a paradox because of the apparent contradiction between our expectation that the night sky be bright and our experience that it is black. So in other words, they're saying we don't understand zip about this question. And this guy Olber is, well, it's a paradox, right? Well, okay, it's a paradox, but can you explain why, or why is this happening? There's no explanation. Okay. Let's see what he says. Many different explanations have been put forward to resolve Olber's paradox. The best solution at present, in other words, the best speculation at present, is that the universe is not infinitely old. It is somewhere around 15 billion years old. That means we can only see objects as far away as the distance light can travel in 15 billion years. The light from stars farther away than that has not yet had time to reach us, and so can't contribute to making the sky bright. This is a phony theory. It's a complete phony. It's a lot of assumptions. The universe is 15 billion years old. How do you know that? They don't know that. You know. Another reason that the sky may not be bright with the visible light of all the stars. It's another second failed theory, is because when a source of light is moving away from you, the wavelength of that light is made longer, which for light means more red. This means that the light from stars that are moving away from us will become shifted towards red, and may shift so far that it is no longer visible at all. Note, you hear the same effect when an ambulance passes you, and the pitch of the siren gets lower as the ambulance travels away from you. This effect is called Doppler's effect. It's another theory that cannot be substantiated. Okay? So, you see, a fundamental thing like this cannot be answered by our scientists. They're just guessing. So here it says, the universe, Prabhupada says here, the universe is by nature dense darkness. And therefore the total creation is called tamas, or darkness. The night is the real feature of the universe, for then one cannot see anything, including oneself. The Lord, out of his causeless mercy, first desired to see himself, and all creation as well, and thus the sun became manifested. The power of vision for all living entities became possible, and the objects of vision were also manifested. This means that the whole phenomenal world became visible after the creation of the sun. Well, that's a fact. There is visibility, right? It doesn't answer the question yet, though. Why is outer space dark if there are so many suns? Well, first of all, let's correct one mistake. All the other stars are not suns. They're just reflecting light like the moon is. So now we come closer to an explanation, right? But still, if the sun is so powerful that it can reflect off of those stars, how come that the space in between the sun and all those other stars and planets is dark? That's the question that has to be answered. Right? I don't know the answer, so I'm not trying to make one up. But it may have to do with the atmosphere, right? It may have to do with that. But let's see. Okay, so then I want to continue somewhat what we were talking about yesterday. What time is it now? 7:06. Okay. We were talking about a display for, by the time of Ananda Mela, that will map out a solution to all the problems that people are facing today. Political problems, war problems, economic problems, relationship problems, birth, death, old age, and disease problems, and so forth. All those problems can be solved How? Well, it's two-pronged. One is by number one, proper education. So we have to display these points. Number two, by proper organization of society, meaning Daiva Varnashram, which is different from the original Varnashram system. Right? Number three, regulated lifestyle for making spiritual progress, because the solution has to be spiritual. It cannot be material. Material solutions will always fail. You know, just like Trump based his whole success on having economic development. It failed. One little virus knocked him out of office. Because if the economy kept growing as it was, Trump would have definitely been voted in again. But it failed. So that the whole basis on which he was going to be voted in collapsed in a matter of a couple of weeks, and then just continued throughout the whole time. And he thought, well, I can overcome this by coming up with a vaccine. So he changed all the rules of the FDA, or suspended them, so that they could come up with a vaccine real quick that would solve the problem. The vaccine didn't solve the problem. Even though they had the vaccine, or different vaccines, it didn't solve the problem. So the problem's still going on. Yesterday, more people died of COVID than did last year. Yesterday. You can look it up. How many people died yesterday? How many people died 2021? Look it up. And they're going to relax all the rules now. So we see how material plans will always fail, no matter how good they are or whatever. What were the numbers yesterday?
February 23rd, the deaths were 3,025.
How about last year?
Same day?
Yeah, same day.
We have to date till March.
What?
No, in March it was, yeah,
We're not in March now.
last year.
Oh, yeah.
February 26th, I mean, I can precisely get you also, but February 26th of last year was 2,000. February 23rd is about 1,300. Yeah, some 1,454 deaths last year.
And how many this year?
3,000.
Okay, so you see, the pandemic is not over yet. In fact, it's more severe now than it was last year. And they're gonna relax all the rules also on the 20. What? I know. Yeah. So you see, material plans will not solve the problem. We're seeing it in our own eyes right now. There has to be a spiritual plan, because everything is going to depend on the desires of the people, right? Now, if they're all desiring nonsense things, then obviously the society is going to fail, and then some new thing will have to come by, a new organization will have to come by of society, right? So let that new organization be Krishna consciousness, but we have to get it right. It's possible that we can make mistakes also. We have to be very careful. So we're going to present the program. That's the whole point. By the Ananda Mela, we have to have the whole program there. I'm going to rewrite the book, Life's Problems and Solutions, and I'm going to demonstrate education, demonstrate societal organization, demonstrate lifestyle adjustment, and then demonstrate peaceful agriculture, or let's say spiritual agriculture, spiritual lifestyle, and spiritual everything. Right? That's the only solution. There's no other solution to this problem. So many years they've been, let's say since the Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution, they based everything on economic development, and it's failing. It's not succeeding, it's failing. And they have the United Nations to stop wars, it's failed. Right? Why are they failing? Because they're basing everything on atheistic principles. The whole educational system is based on atheistic principles. It's called humanism. Look that up. What is the basis of modern education? It's the humanistic philosophy, which is atheistic. And the system of humanistic education is going on in India as well as the United States and every major country in the world. Russia also, China also. Look up the word humanism. Humanism. What's it say? What's it say?
An outlook or a system of thought attaching prime importance to human rather than divine or supernatural matter.
Yeah, they just rejected God right there. Okay? The human being is the measure of everything, and they don't believe in God. They use these words superhuman or, blah, blah, blah. But they're definitely rejecting God. Right in that first statement, it's a rejection of God. And that's the system that's being used for educating kids today. Humanistic education, look that up. Humanistic education. These are things we don't realize. We don't even think about what we're doing. Go ahead. Humanistic education.
Humanistic education is an approach to education based on the work of humanistic psychologists, most notably Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers.
Yeah, go ahead, but that's just the...
Yeah, so I'll get to the more specific principles. The humanistic approach places a great deal of emphasis on students' choice and control over the course of their education. Students are encouraged to make choices that range from day-to-day activities to periodically setting future life goals. This allows for students to focus on specific subject of interest and any amount of time they choose within reason. Humanistic teachers believe it is important for students to be motivated and engaged in the material they are learning.
Okay, well, that is blah, blah. Keep going.
And then humanistic education tends to focus on the felt concerns and interests of the students intertwining with the intellect. It is believed that the overall mood and feeling of the students can either hinder or foster the...
Okay, that's all blah, blah. Go farther. That's not explaining what their basis is. They're just trying to attract you by saying that. They're emphasizing the independence of the student. Go ahead.
So the humanistic educators believe that both feelings and knowledge are important to the learning process. Unlike traditional educators, humanistic educators do not separate the cognitive and affective brains. This aspect also relates to the curriculum in the sense that lessons and activities provide focus on various aspects of student, not just rote memorization through note reading.
It's all blah, blah. Keep going. Look up the philosophy of humanistic education. Huh? Yeah.
Humanism stresses the importance of human values and dignity. It proposes that people can resolve problems through the use of science and reason.
There it is, right there.
Rather than looking to religious traditions, humanism instead focus on helping people live well, achieve personal growth, and make the world a better place.
There you go. Basically, it's atheistic. You see? And that's the system that's being practiced right now. That's the pedagogic basis of education in the United States and in all the Western countries and in India also. Everywhere it's like that. It's just science and reason, science and reason, science and reason. That's it. Yes.
I think there's one other, somewhere reading the definition here. Humanists believe this is the one life we have, and so we need to make the
Yeah.
Then it is up to us to make our own life meaningful. They believe we should be free to decide how we live.
Yatamat tatapat. Yatamat tatapat. Whatever you think, that's the truth. You see? And don't be surprised if your kid comes back then one day and says, well, I don't believe in God, you know. I believe in IT. Yeah, IT, AI, you know. Or I'm a transgender now, you know. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. It's not funny. It's serious. It's very serious. These people, what I mean, the so-called atheistic humanists, they have control of the education system. They have control of it, absolute control of it. See? Anyway, okay. So, what time is it now?
7:18.
Okay, so we got to work on this project. We have to work on this project, right? Proper education, proper social organization, or Krishna conscious organization, and lifestyle, and agriculture. If you change agriculture and make it Krishna conscious, that would change the society. Just that one thing would change the society. So everything has to be let's say, oriented. If not, we are going with our eyes closed, walking over a cliff. That's how serious the situation is becoming. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Now, I'm not making any of this stuff up.
No, this is based on the. We're trying to re-establish the original
Yeah.
Vedic lifestyle.
It's more important now than ever because
Yes.
we're going to go into a period of extreme suffering, mental and physical, Imagine you have to wait in line 3 hours to get a tank of gas, and then after 3 hours they tell you, well, we ran out, you have to come back tomorrow. That's what happened under Carter.
Yeah.
Look it up. Look up the history of the United States under, I forget his first name, but Carter. When Jimmy Carter, yeah, the peanut farmer. He was a peanut farmer and becomes president of the United States. So we got another peanut farmer as president right now. Yeah.
So, religious principles are there are many, no Maharaj. Now everyone is following different. So, which one they can help, Maharaj? See, if I tell Krishna, then other people will object for that.
No, we're not going to tell Krishna. What we're telling is mode of goodness. We want to bring people up to the mode of goodness in all religions. I'm thinking about calling it the coalition of goodness. Because if you say Krishna consciousness, obviously, they're going to say, oh, this is not our religion, blah, blah, blah. No, if we say this is the coalition for goodness, right? Just like we have goodness cookies. Now we have goodness agriculture, goodness education, goodness this, goodness that. Right? So that, I think, would fly, would resonate with people. If we say Krishna consciousness, they're going to, right away say, oh, this is a sect. I'm not going to be part of a sect. All right. We want to bring everything to the mode of goodness. At least in the mode of goodness, people can begin to understand Krishna conscious philosophy. As long as they're in passion and ignorance, no possibility at all. Almost impossible. So goodness in agriculture, goodness in politics, goodness in the military, goodness in agriculture, goodness in work, goodness in thought, goodness this, goodness that. Okay?
I have seen the same thing, Maharaj, in the office. If we talk about anything related to Krishna consciousness,
They don't want to hear it. They don't want to
as
hear
soon
it.
as we talk about food truck, giving,
Yeah.
few people are interested.
Exactly.
They say how to donate.
Yes.
They ask this question.
Exactly.
Immediately. How much change I have seen, like from not listening versus I'm ready to donate.
Yeah. they'll figure out that we're Krishna conscious people. But if we don't push them to, what they would consider is canvassing them to become devotees, we push them just to be good, right? Just to come up to the mode of goodness, because that, when they come up to the mode of goodness, then they can hear something, they can begin to understand something. Haribo. Of course, some people say, oh, Haribo, he's like, he's not following Prabhupada, right? Right? This is not Krishna consciousness. They gotta go to, the Discover Yourself course to become fixed up, How many people are going to the Discover Yourself course? Yeah, some people are, and it's good. It's not a bad thing. It's very good. But you look at all the people out there, they're so confused. They're not going to accept being preached to, but they might accept hearing something that can solve their problems. Solve their problems. Haribol. Okay, who's going to sing? Go ahead.
Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada, Jayo Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma.
Bandho Muhi Savadana Mate.
Bandho Muhi Savadana Mate.
Jahara Prasade Bhai E Bhava Toriya Jai.
Janar Prasade Bhai E Bhavatoriya Jai.
Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaha Hoy Te.
Krishna Prabhi Hoya Hoyte.
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Koriya Kya.
Guru Mukha Padma Vagya Chittite Koriya.
Arena Koriyo Mane Asha.
Arana Koriya Mane Asa.
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati.
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati.
Je Prasade Pure Sarva Asha.
Ye Prasade Pure Sarvasa.
चक्षुर्दान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से.
Dakshidana Dila बचे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित
प्रेम भक्ति जाहा होते अविद्या विनाश जायते
प्रेम भक्ति जाते अविद्या विनाश जाते
वेदे गाय जाहर चरितो
वेदे गाय जनर चरितो
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदमा जनारा बंधु
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अदन जनार बंधु
लोकेनाथ लोकेर जीवाना
लोकेनाथ लोकेर जीवाना
आहा प्रभु कोरो दया देहो मोरे पदचय
प्रभु कोर दया दया मोरे पद जय
एबे जास कुशिक त्रिभुवाना
एबे आसुसुचि भुवाना
प्रभुपाद पतित पवाना
प्रभुपाद पतित पवाना
जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद
जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद
नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने
ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्यता देशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवाणी पश्यत्यदिशतारिणे
श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद
जय श्री कृष्ण
प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि और भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajagacha Statara Satrishi Shishi Maharaj Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Shri Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the Assembled One. All glories to the Assembled One. All glories to the Assembled One. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guru. Glories to Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Namaste. Let's cut this a turn. The lotus feet of our spiritual masters is the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus feet. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is devotion and mercy, friend of the poor, and Lord and Master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavani Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Namaste Saraswati.